Good evening, chess friends. This is International Master Valeri Lilov, and today we're going to be talking about one of the greatest chess players in history. I'm going to be talking about Mikhail Tal. Now, to some of you who are fairly familiar with who Tal is, actually, you know that I'm going to be talking nonstop about how you can make a successful sacrifice. But I'm going to talk also about a part of the games that Tal played that is not so widely discussed. How did Tal get to these positions when actually a sacrifice is possible and he could do it so effective? So you see, it's not about the tactic itself. It was about Tal's strategy. And I'm going to be talking about the keys of setting up a successful attack, what helped those sacrificial variations to work, and how you can take those ideas and incorporate them in your own games, which is ultimately what this is all about. So, first of all, I'd like to know if you guys can hear me okay, because I've already started. Let's see. Can you hear me all right? Just please let me know. Um, okay. So, um, no, you can't? Really? Okay. Yes, all is good. All right. So you can hear me. You can hear me. That's most important. Thank you. Okay. So we're going to see uh, a few very selected and instructive games that were played by Tal that were very recently shown in the fantastic course of Master Melachina, who actually made a brilliant course on how to apply these concepts in the game. So I'm going to take up a few of her suggestions that are quite amazing, and about positional, about attacking style of play, and how to develop an attack. And I'm going to try to bring my own impressions from her brilliant DVD, which is basically offered at an incredible 60% discount at the link below. So if you're interested to check it out, I think it's really good, and I think you can learn a great deal from it. So don't forget to check it. Now, let me open up the very first game I'd like to talk to you about. So give me 1 second. All right, we're going with the first game of Tal, and more importantly, I think you should. I need to copy it up here. It's played between Tal and Hecht. To those of you who are familiar with that game, this will be an interesting take. For those of you who are not, it's going to be a blast. I do hope so. So, just a moment. All right. Okay, give me 1 second. All right, here we go. So you finally got the game in front of me, and we'll start. So this was called the Mission Impossible game. That's I think how it was officially called. Tal was white, and it started with the move of d4, knight f6, c4, e6, and knight f3. Black played b6, knight c3, and bishop b4. Now, I don't want to go dive in so much deeper into the opening because it was all about White just setting up his pieces and developing closer to the center. He did it very well with bishop g5, e3 as it came, h6, and bishop h4. So I have to admit that White got a fine game. Now, the first thing that you need to understand is that attacks do not work immediately. Unless your opponent makes a blunder or he gets a really terrible pawn structure in the opening, you can't attack him right away. It takes time. This is why I say that a successful tactic is rarely possible if you don't have the positional background. And positional background is a very wide term that more or less, incorporates all the things that matter, like center, better development, good coordination between your pieces, and a more active position. So all these things must be present so that you can launch your fight for attack. So anyway, black played bishop takes to c3, trying to double the pawns, yet giving up the bishop pair, and d6. So this is where the game really becomes interesting. So we start with that question of what should white do now? This is a great question. What do you guys think? Now I want you to think about this position and come up with your own thought that I'll comment on. Now remember, I don't want to hear just about what move do you think about this. Keep in mind, moves I don't care about. Our idea is not to think about moves. Think of ideas. So if you have a move to suggest, don't just write pawn to h3 or rook g1. It doesn't mean anything. Bring your thoughts. Even if it's just a one small sentence of explaining why you suggest certain move, that's enough. So I'll comment on that and I'll tell you whether you're right or you're wrong. So I'd like you to bring your thoughts into your suggestion. So finish the development. I like that very, very suggestion. Develop and castle. Yes, absolutely. Develop. But how? Bishop d3 and e4. Then we castle. That sounds good. That sounds like a good idea. I mean, maybe black can do knight d7, and then we can castle. I agree. But if we do this, there's a good chance black can just play with queen e7. And of course, we're going to get a fine development. But Tal had something else in mind. You see, development is good. But what's even more important than just a simple generic development is the opportunity for you to make sure you get more space, to make sure that you can get more control. It's not that easy. But you want to be thinking about this. How can we possibly get more space or acquire more control here? There was a great idea that white followed up with. I'm not going to tell you what it was, but it was a great idea. It was really good. So what should white do now? d5, I think that's a good move. Not a problem. So he can try to attack the e6. But what white did, really, was a slightly different idea, slightly different move. Played knight d2. Now this is going totally insane. Why? Because we know that this is not supposed to happen. I mean, who would ever like to move twice with a single piece in the opening? So why did Tal did it then? You do it. That means what's the purpose? Now let me tell you something. A successful attack, unless your opponent blunders, which is something I mentioned before, a successful attack can only exist if you have the right positional backbone. That means you need a good structure. If you don't have the structure, even if you have a perfect target, like an exposed king or not undeveloped pieces by the opponent, you can't attack because your pieces cannot reach him. I mean, look at this position. We'd love to reach the black king. Maybe it's exposed. We can't. It's impossible. So you see, that's what I mean by structure. Now, of course, the question that arises is, how do we get a better structure? And remember this. It's about one simple idea. Get more space. Literally, get more space. If you get more space, you immediately have a better structure. And how do we get more space? We advance or prepare to advance our pawns. It is that simple. So essentially, if you want to get a good attack in the middle game, you need to have more of a powerful pawn structure. If you want to have a better pawn structure, you need to have more space. And that's how we get it. Knight d2 was not a simple developing move. It was a move that was preparing white to get that more space and thereby more powerful pawn structure. It sounds complicated, but it really isn't. It is simple. That's what makes it so unique. Ultimately, Tal wanted to get the right pawn structure. So rule number one, if you want to attack successfully in the middle game or whenever the opportunity arises, make sure that from the very beginning of the game, of course, without delaying too much your development and all, from the very beginning of the game, you build a strong pawn structure. How do you do that? Look at how your pawns can come forward, get more space, and provide more of an active development to your pieces. Is it easy? No. But is it important? You bet. This is going to be the backbone of your position. It was unique on how Tal did it. It was wonderful. And you're going to see what he was able to achieve with that very soon. So knight bd7, bishop d3, and knight f8. So here we have another question. How should white play now? I have to admit that this is a good position, starting with the great bishop that we're having on h4 to all the other, squares and pieces. And I have to say this really almost looks terrific. But still, it brings a very key critical question here. How to use that power. Now, one of you just asked, isn't that an advantage for white that black does not have a dark square bishop? It is. I mean, you could see yourself that pressure there we have created against the f6. Now, I got a suggestion of castle and queen c2, but no reasoning behind that, so I wouldn't comment on that. Now, advance with d5. Again, bring an idea to the move. Keep in mind that the biggest reason why most players fail with their plans is because they jump to moves. Move without an idea is nothing. It's a waste of time. It may or may not work, but you're just taking your chances. It's nothing great. Now, here's an idea. Take more space or open up. Absolutely. Now, we could take more space by playing d5. I agree. But then our bishop is going to be very much locked up, and we don't want to do that. So, can we open or maybe develop? Well, finishing the development will more or less give him time to consolidate. So I guess we can do that, but it's not too perfect. I like that idea. Open. Open because we're attacking. But hang on. Aren't we a little behind on our development? Well, not really. I mean, we can castle any second. But there is the move. c5. I just got that suggestion, and thank you for suggesting it. It was wonderful. It was great. It was well played, and it worked. Black does d6. That means he's got a couple of different moves that he can make right now, but you can see that most of them are really not that easy, because how is he going to take? Take with the pawn, or take with the with the b pawn, or with the other? Either way, I think we have a pretty fascinating position. So c5 really jumps in as a beautiful, effective move that Tal has been able to make. It's great. It really is. So let's see. What what really comes in here is this simple position. Okay, let me actually copy the names for someone who wants to see it. So like c5, just opening up. Tal was brilliant with that idea. If we open, there's going to be nothing the opponent can do to fight back. Why? Because he's behind. For example, take a look at this. bx to the c. We can have bishop takes f6. He's going to have to take back with the queen. And at the time he takes back with the queen, we're going to play queen a4 check. Rook b1 with an attack. We take the initiative because we're already perfect in our development. So every move starts, but we have the preparation, we have the setup, we get a better pawn structure for this. So that was a great move. Now black played d6 to the c, of course, trying to avoid all this. And now white played d6 to the e5. Yes, if you're ahead in development, open. There's only one way to open, and that's when you exchange the pawns and you get new lions to help your attack. So check, c6, and now white has an important question to himself. So what do we do now? And one of you said the game was held at my hometown. It was, absolutely. It was the Olympiad 1962 in Varna. So it was Bobby Fischer who was actually here. My grandfather essentially said, you saw it. You saw Bobby Fischer's boots, like they were huge. No, it was incredible. But yeah, that was essentially, a long time before I was born. In fact, I think it was even my dad wasn't born at that time. So what should we do now? It's a good question. Remember, ideas, not moves. What idea I can follow? We haven't finished development, so castle. Well, you see, if White wanted to finish the development, he would have done that some time ago. He would have done that earlier, a lot earlier. But I don't think it was so much about this. Shall we say knight c4? No, because he's going to take c3 with a check. So, no. No. What should white do? What is his best way? Or what does he need to prepare? Give me an idea. The idea is more important. Get tempos by castling? Well, it's not really getting tempos if we castle. Exchanging f6 will also only help black to take back. So, you see, there's trouble. Basically, what you find out in this position is that there is nothing that white can do. And that is sad. If you really think about it, it is a bit of a sad story because we were supposed to have much and then we don't. So how do we prove that there is really something out there along the lines? First of all, remember the 3 most important moves in chess. The 3 most important moves in chess are always going to help your position to improve and get better in general. And so that's why you care about them so much. And what are they? Well, they are checks, captures, direct threats, forcing moves, because they force the opponent to respond. And also what we have is the restrictive moves, which restrict him, maybe tie him down on defense or something like that. However, we have a third kind, and those are the reinforcing moves. They don't challenge the opponent, but they're necessary to refuel our attack and help us get more pieces. That's what white did by castling. Now, one of you suggested that, and you're probably wondering, Valeri, I thought that I said that. Why didn't you say that? Because I didn't get any explanation to that move. But more importantly, it wasn't just because one wanted to develop. It was because he needed those rooks. He needed to get more pieces as quickly as he can into the attack. There were no forcing moves. There were no restrictive moves. And knight c4 was very necessary. So Tal just needed to get the pieces. And the castling helped him to avoid being checked. So now the queen goes back. And I think this is great. It's a perfect position. You have the space. We have him a little bit more on the backside. And I love that. It's a good position. He's being pushed back. He's essentially quite down on development. So what to do now? Let's take a moment and think about this. It's a really important position. Most our pieces are good. How was queen next to the c3 bad? Well, if black did it, then knight d6 would have happened. So what to do now? What ideas do you guys have? So how do we do that now? Bishop takes f? No, because he's going to take it back with the queen. Anyone with an idea? I don't want just moves, remember. Give me ideas. Ideas like, I think white should do this because of that. Okay, that's an idea. That's meaning behind the move. Now, we probably have some meaning, but I want to know it. So I can tell you if you're thinking in the right or in the wrong way. Where can white attack? Do another of those third kind move. I like that. Get new pieces. We don't have time. See, if you keep going to get new pieces, it will look good. But then black is just going to castle, and then we give him enough time to escape. Now, after castling, why didn't black just take the pawn? Because it doesn't matter. If he takes the pawn, white would have played bishop a6 most likely, attacking b7 and c6, so we can see the problems. Okay, and I got an idea. Open a file. Absolutely. Open a file. One of the essential elements of attack suggests that once we get the right structure and the pieces that are necessary for the attack, which white already did, you must look for ways to open up the files. And I'd say these are really the 2 things that matter. Pawn structure, pieces, and open lines. In fact, there are 3. 3 things that really are the course of a successful attack. And if you're hurting because you're not able to find out good lines or good attack, go back to those 3 things. Think about it. Do I have enough pieces? Do I have a good pawn structure? Do I have enough open lines? I guarantee you're going to miss one of these three things. If you're not missing any of those three things, probably you're missing the right move. Maybe you're just close to one move closer to winning the game. You don't see it, but it's going to be there. That's one good idea on whether you're thinking in the right way, whether you have enough, or perhaps I often believe you may be missing one or two of the pieces or such that you need to bring so you can attack. E5 was perfect. Black could not take it because he would lose, and it's awesome. So how did that work? E5. Why doesn't bishop takes f6 work? Because black would just take away the pawn. Yes, he'll have the double pawn, but he'd be safe, and he might be able to castle too. So e5 was better. Okay, e5 just worked better. So b5. Wow, hold on, we missed that, didn't we? I mean, hold on. Tal played that, but he missed it, didn't he? It's like everybody who plays such a move, it's got to be ready, and it looks like anything, but we kind of missed the move. Kind of missed this tactic. What the hell are we going to do? What the hell are we going to do? We just got busted. Didn't we? Now, knight d6 possible, but then you'll just take it with the queen. You take it with the queen, and upon the capture, he'll take down our queen. So that doesn't work. It's going to be a very disappointing moment if you're playing this game with white. And the reason is because there is just no way that we just missed everything we were given, all those possibilities, for simply one attack, like one simple tactic, and that was it. It's so horrible. Like, just when you think about this, it makes no sense at first. So, question that I have is, what can we do? Okay, check or play queen to the b3. Queen takes 3. Okay, so I think that's fine. I think what is much more important that you need to do in this moment is look for, because queen b3 is a good stabilizing move, and I agree with that. It's not a bad idea to do queen b3. But then, black would just be able to take on the h4. And so he might be able to solidify the position and do well. I think that it's a good candidate. However, white had something else in this moment. What else? Keep looking. Pawn takes f6. Now that's crazy. You're giving up the queen. What are you talking about? Why would we ever take and give up our queen like that? Queen takes b5 can't work. You'll just take it. E takes f and then fork the black queen. Yeah, but he's just gonna win our rook. Win our rook with the queen. Yet that was Tal. What is he most famous about? Queen sacrifices? Maybe, but not really. He was famous for the ability to take the initiative and lead it through. The most powerful level of attack is the initiative, because what it represents is a amount of forcing moves, challenges, we present against the opponent in a sequence, one after the other. We took the knight, and we take the pawn attacking the rook, and then we attack the queen by bringing the bishop on f5. He can't take it due to knight d6, and we suddenly realize that he can't take the knight either, because if he does, we got rook e1 check, and that kind of variation is going to really kill him. He can't go anywhere, and he can't move that knight back because we got rook takes d7, and that's going to be a real destruction, actually, if you think of it this way. It is amazing and works. What happened after bishop f5 is that black saw himself in trouble. He did not know where to go. He plays knight takes h4, but then there's bishop takes e6. f takes to the e6, and then after the move f takes to the e6, of course, now we have the move of knight to d6 check, which is basically a disaster of any kind. So that's a wonderful move. With that in mind, the majority of black's pieces just completely lose themselves within the like the amazing strength and power of our attack, and he loses. That's too hard to do, Valeri. And well, I don't think so. See, when you think about a queen, you say, "Oh no, I can't do that." But think about this: every piece has its own relative value, depending on how much that piece plays at this particular moment. You can discover really how important it is. Now, the black queen was in the middle, and it became more of a target as opposed to any important piece. So essentially, now it is white who simply dominates and continues to dominate the black position. That was a wonderful, really huge opportunity. And in the moment bishop f5 comes in, it is that very moment where you realize, hey, you know what? Black is busted. And he is busted because that's what this move does. It busts him out completely. What is brilliant about that too is his inability to escape. Really, just it's a nice attack. We got rook e1, and he's got almost no way to run. He played knight takes h4, bishop takes d6, and then okay, f takes d doesn't work, so he tried bishop a6. But then one just keeps going. Knight d6 check. King e7, and now white simply stabilizes. Nobody ever believes in the stabilization. Now, what is stabilizing? Stabilizing is the following. Once you already get an advantage, you don't want to carry on and put yourself at more risk. No. Step back, solidify your position as much as you can, and make sure you stabilize, because you're at a big risk. Now, you think you're dominating, you think you're doing great, but actually you're not. What is happening is that you are sitting on the backside and you're hoping that maybe the opponent is not going to have anything, or you think that you've got everything. You're at a big mistake. It's not going to be like that. And most times what really happens is that you overdo the position by pushing it through a little too much and making it even more risky. Don't. What white really wanted to do here was experience a fantastic endgame with a much better pawn structure. And that's sad. You'd say, oh, Valeri, come on. Really? Just, it was all about that? Come on. Tal had better games than that, right? Maybe. But in reality, when we play games, we don't care about beauty as we care about technique. The technique and beauty work in different ways, but essentially it's always about the technical advantage we can get, because you never want to expose yourself or risk your advantage for the sake of making a shiny game. Nobody is going to congratulate you for losing a beautiful game. One of my teachers used to tell me, Valeri, I've always preferred the ugly win to the beautiful loss. And I'll never forget that. He said that to me, and it was like, yes, man. This is, yes, sir. Yeah, I was like, yes, sir. This is it. I would prefer 100 times to win in an ugly way than one time to lose it beautifully, because it hurts. And so essentially the point is, white just did not want to allow any complications. There's rook b1, f6, and then rook d1 check. And now this is a very consistent, gradual endgame. Not as a transformation. We were attacking, and suddenly white transformed it in a much more technical position, where he can convert his advantage with ease and less risk at the position. He just keeps improving. Now, let's see if you guys have any suggestion on what white should do now. Do you have any recommendation where white's supposed to go at this point? Take your time. Think about it. Now, one of you said this is one of the hardest moves to be done. You choose a very hard game. Maybe I did, but it's really not that hard, as it is about revelation. It's like you can see something that a lot of people don't see. They think about, okay, why would I ever do this? And then you can see the purpose, and then you understand that in fact this is something you can do if you evaluate it correctly. Take the pawn, that's fine, but in some way Black wanted it. He didn't need that pawn. That's why he gave it away with his last move. So okay. Now what if he said, come on, letting the queen to be taken is crazy. We can't see that. You can see it, but you dismiss it. That's why I say that it's in tactical positions. It's so important to look at as many candidates as possible, not to calculate them deep. That will take a lot of time. Just look, search for alternatives, and if something catches your eye, perhaps you can look at it a little deeper. Now, White wanted to apply the one rule that matters most in endgames: restrict g4. There are other moves, and they're not as bad. But what we need is to play with this move of pawn to g4, because after that g4 we're doing it great. And okay, so now we do that g4 and that e7. Then we have rook to b7, rook g8, and bishop takes c4. Isn't it cute? I mean, it's cute, it's secure, and what keeps doing? It's just perfect. Takes, and rook b4. Rook c8, rook takes a4. You'd say that the game, out of a very exciting queen sacrifice, turned into a boring endgame. But and you'd be right. But it was a secure, boring endgame. White knew he was having the advantage, and he just kept on going for that. He wins the rook, wins the pawn, and now you can play h3, contrary to all. Like it almost sounds like Karpov played. It's like Tal played this first part of the game, and then Karpov played the second. And really, that's the balance that holds it together. It's never about just attack, 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 attack. You need to have what I would call peaks and valleys. You have to figure out the time when you can attack and the time when you have to stabilize or transform into much more of a quiet position so you can protect your advantage. Otherwise, you risk too much. So take, rook h7, and the pass pawn. Pass pawns are awesome about endgames because when we do them, they keep our opponent. They hold him back. And so this is a great move. Rook f5, check, king g3, king to the c4, rook e to e5 in that moment, d4, and g6. Rook h1, and rook c5 check. King d3, capture, takes, and king f4. Rook g1, and rook g5. Now Black resigned because he realized in case of the exchange of queens, both sides would eventually queen at the same time. But then the moment Black queens, it's going to be White's turn. He's going to come to b3, exchange the queen, and then Black can't stop the f. So Black resigned. Now, it's really interesting to go back in the beginning and see the elements again that made this attack possible. It sounds complicated, but it's not. Let me break it down to you. First, you want to take some notes, now is the time. So first, begin with a simple development that above all else helps you to get a better, or what I would call more advanced pawn structure. You can't make a successful attack if you don't have the right pawn structure. So if you want to be able to attack from the very beginning of the game, think about how your pawn structure can help you to get more space, more opportunities. That's what White began with. Second, as the opponent did not want to develop, he wanted to counter quickly, whatever. If your opponent doesn't develop, open. Opening of the position through pawn exchanges helps you to get all the necessary lines for attack. And White had many of them once the c pawn came through. It was very successful. 3. When you attack, remember that there are the 3 kinds of moves that will help your attack to grow and progress as you go along. We got forcing moves, all those moves like c5, d takes to d, and so on, checks, captures, direct threats. You've got restrictive moves. Maybe we could say, I mean, actually, White didn't make many restrictive moves. And then we have reinforcing moves. Now, you want to choose reinforcing moves only when it's necessary because they're slow, yet they must happen. so you can bring fresh forces, fresh power into the attack. And when you balance those three and you keep going, you're going to gain such a momentum that even a queen sacrifice like this is going to help. Now, how do you find a queen sacrifice like that? Look at more move candidates. Look at the moves and possibilities which will help you create threats. And you'll see it, because really anything else was going to give black time. But this helped white to take over the initiative. So every move that followed was with a sort of a threat. Check, capture. And above all else, remember that the sequence is supposed to give you an advantage and you're supposed to stabilize it. You cannot checkmate the opponent. Checkmating is happening rarely. He must blunder and must be a unique position. You take sometimes often the positional advantage, you stabilize it, and you go on to win in a boring endgame. Sounds bad, but that's the truth. That's how it goes. It almost reminds me of these, Hong Kong action movies, which I love, by the way. I love, Bruce Lee. And the problem is, if you really watch a fight, it doesn't look quite like that. He does look interesting, but it's not like that. Not that interesting. Why? Because in those movies, there is a lot of, it's like dance, like choreography and everything. So you really have realism versus, the cinema. So we have two very different type of ways. The real fights look very different. So that's the same thing. Keep in mind that a lot of the tactic books show you the beautiful, expressive way of how a tactic works. And it doesn't quite work like that in your games. It doesn't mean that tactic books are bad. It just means that you have to be careful. Learn concepts, learn the patterns from these. But in your own games, keep in mind that they'll work a bit differently. So you can still recognize them. They just wouldn't work in that 100% brilliant way. Even a queen sacrifice like the one that Tal did not lead to a checkmate. It just led to an incredible positional advantage that white kept building and nurturing with every single move that happened. So for anyone who wants me to send you this actual annotated game of Tal, I will recommend that you just write me a little email. I'm going to just put in my email address. So do it like whenever you get a chance, or maybe you can just do it through my website. I'll be very glad to send you the PGN of this game. So now I'm going to take a look at another game that was played by Tal. I understand this was not a very easy one, but the next one was incredibly fun and very beautiful. So now I'd also recommend you to check Master Melahina's course that covers a lot of Tal's games and his approach to attacking and planning. So you might actually have a look at that. It's 60% off just for a few hours. You can check a link below the video, and I also posted it on the chat. Now, let's get another game that I have of Tal. It's a pretty impressive game I've got out here that shows a little bit more to his approach of attacking. Okay, so here we go. And this is one of the best games of Tal that I've seen. It's called the Elephant Man. This is the Elephant Man game, and it's simply fantastic. You will love it, at least as much as I did. Okay, here we go. One second. Okay. So Tal was actually playing with white. It was played in Tallinn 1964 against Grandmaster Anatoly Ludikov. And basically started with e4, e5, knight f3, and d5. Now, Ludikov was a very interesting person. He was a grandmaster who had who played different openings. And in this case, he decided to surprise Tal with the Elephant Gambit. Now, it's a bit of an incorrect opening, but it relates to a lot of players who don't know how to handle these type of openings. Imagine you know a lot of theory, and then suddenly your opponent plays off the book. either with a surprise against you or just something he doesn't know and it comes as a surprise. So what do you do? Now, there are basically two ways to handle that. First way, you stick as much as possible to the simple original order of playing. Like, for example, a lot of people would do knight x to the e5 in that order, d4, which should give you a comfortable position. So in order to stay out of trouble, just keep it simple and stay to the original plan. However, there is another way to go, and this way especially works when you know that your opponent's sideline is bad. Like, for example, he's opening up here. He's opening up without having any development. So you know that deep down this is wrong. So what do you do then? You attack. That's actually one of the earliest attacks that you can do. The moment you see he played a bad opening, unless it really takes a lot of effort for you to do any threats or whatever you want to open, and you want to start challenging him. Edicts to the d5 was a great move. Now, if black takes, of course, the queen is going to get challenged. So he plays e4, and white plays queen e2. However, you're going to see the same pattern from the previous game. It's about making constant threats, one after the other after the other, so we don't give him any time. See, if black is given time, he'll consolidate or maybe counter us, but white doesn't give him that time. So here, and now we have a problem. Black's got to worry about the e4, so he plays bishop b4. Take a moment to think about this. This is very interesting. Take a moment and think about what white should do now. Let's see. I got some questions that I couldn't answer. One of you actually asked. So he said, okay, let's see. Valeri, you have a video on Kingston in attack on a webinar. I don't think so. I have on a Kingston in defense. Any recommendation how to improve blindfold chess? Yeah, work on endgames. Take up on an endgame. And that was my dad's suggestion, by the way. Take up on an endgame with like 2 kings on a pawn. Put it on the board. Try to, remember where the pieces stand for a few seconds, then remove them from the board. And try to solve the endgame, or if you can't solve it, at least to work through it with the book. Then you do that until you actually are very comfortable and you can visualize many moves with 2 kings and a pawn. Then you add another pawn, and then you add another piece as you get comfortable, with the current amount. So you can do that until you get 6 or 7 pieces, and that way you constantly improve your visualization. So you improve your blindfold. Now, this is one of the approaches. There are many others as well, but this is how I was trained. Now, one of you asked, when I get an initiative, okay, when do I get an initiative? When do you get it? You get an initiative when you can make a sequence of threats or problems against your opponent. That's when you get an initiative. How do you find if the position is to attack or defend? Well, you always want to attack, but you can. And you certainly don't want to defend, but you have to. So I guess you will see it when it happens, when you have enough possibilities. So one of you actually said, Valeri, please answer this question. What's the big difference between you and Magnus that makes him world champ and you're an international master? Well, I guess it's talent, because that's why I'm a chess coach and he's a super grandmaster world champion, obviously. And also, it's time. You decide what to do. I mean, like that's why there are they're champions, they're geniuses, they're musicians, and they're coaches to musicians, So I guess I am the second kind. I'm sort of a coach, All right. Now let's talk about that. Bishop b4, queen b5 check. I like that move. We get the attack and we hit the bishop. We're able to take away the black king. So c4. So the black king now can't castle. He does it to edicts f3. Wow, that was a really nice sequence. I mean, at least we can win a pawn right now. Yeah. And I want to talk about the quick attack. Now, there exists generally 2 kinds of attack. We have the gradual attack, which we saw in the previous game, that sort of develops over time. And we have the fast attack, which actually is what a lot of you think about. Like, let's start in the early stage. Now, for that, your opponent needs to make a mistake or blunder, which he did. You need special circumstances. But you still have to understand that it doesn't work like, okay, I start attacking him and I finish by checkmating him. It doesn't work like that. In the process of your attack, you'll always need to group or regroup or reposition your pieces so that you can limit him in some way. As what was missing any forcing or restrictive moves, he needed to simply finish up his development with bishop g5. Thank you. That was a great suggestion. Takes long side castles. Just look at that. Knight c6 and queen a3. You know, I had a very interesting lesson with a young student today, and I asked him a very important question. I asked him, what is the most important goal of an attack? He thought for a moment and he said, checkmate. I was like, yes, checkmate, that's great. But if you can't checkmate, what else are you looking to do? It was like, win material. And I said, yes, you want to win material because either a checkmate or material, they give you a winning advantage. But that doesn't happen until the very end of your attack. So what goes in the middle or the beginning? What is your goal then? Is it just about making some nice challenges or just about bringing more pieces? Like, those are good ways to lead it, but what's the ultimate goal of that? We can't expect to checkmate or win the material. That eventually happens or may not happen at the very end. So if you don't have a checkmate or winning material, what is the third goal for the attack? Let's see if any of you can figure that out. Give me a suggestion. So we have checkmates and we have winning material. What's the third goal of the attack? The one that we have to most relate on when we're leading the attack prior to that, like big win or victory by winning material, checkmating him. Prior to that moment, what is our goal? Improve, get a better position. That's very general. Like, everybody wants to get a better position. Positional advantage. Pose problems, make threats. Yes, exactly. Pose problems, make threats. Create pressure. Very simply speaking, create more pressure over the opponent. Pressure is that, I would call it, connecting link that helps you to realize more challenges versus the opponent that will keep him back until you get to that point where there's a breakthrough. All you want is to make more pressure. Now, how do we do that? We'll take a look at how Tal does it. He doesn't make any threat with queen a3, but he keeps black away from being able to castle. Okay? He keeps him from being able to castle, and he makes more challenges over d5. The pressure itself does not kill him. It simply holds him in a backwards position. Imagine a boxing match. Okay, so you're the boxer. What do? Okay, so you start, like punching, and maybe you hurt the opponent. So what you can do is think about knocking him down, but he's not going to let you. Or maybe you're going to actually risk to let him to counter you. So what you do is you keep him in this position. You keep punching and you retreat and you punch and you retreat and you punch. And like, you just keep doing that. And you keep him in the same situation. You keep the same beats over and over and over again, because he's going to get tired. Because what's going to happen is that as you keep the pressure for long enough, sooner or later, there's going to be this knockout chance, and then you take it. But you can't force it, see? So that's what this intermediate goal means. Create pressure means hold your opponent on the defense, on having, protect certain weaknesses, and stay in the same backward passive position that he had to stay for a while. So that's what bishop c4 is going to do. And it's a very interesting moment, because people don't know when they get themselves in such a position. Yeah, I should probably do some chess boxing. Sure, of course. And, like, black plays queen e7 now. But, of course, it doesn't matter. I mean, like, who cares about this type of move? I'm guessing that essentially after the move of bishop to the c4 and queen e7, we can just take him on the d5. And now we're able to take the permanent advantage. We can do the move knight c7 with the check, king e7. And Tal did the move rook e1. So this is a big, candidate out there. So we have this amazing sequence with the rook. And so just, in fact, after continuing with that move, rook to the e1, we have the bishop. We have this really great possibility to attack e6, e5. I mean, you can see everything in this moment. And you see, so this is beautiful. One of the things that you find out is just let's get those pieces into play. Let's get them into the attack. Now, again, we have a similar position to a queen sacrifice, but it works. So rook e1, queen c5, and rook takes e6. King f8, and we have rook takes f6. G takes f, knight e6 check, and then after king e7, we got knight takes to the c5. F takes g5, and then we're with rook to the d7 check. So that is a really interesting thing. You have 3 attacking pieces. Now we have an endgame position. I want you to check this out. There is an endgame position, and we're material down, but white is dominating. How about that? Why? Are we supposed to lose our attack when there's an endgame? Yes, we are. But white isn't losing it, because basically every move that follows is, again, a forcing one. Every move that comes out of it is with an attack and forcing black to come right down. Now, it's amazing also to see one more thing, which is really the source of the attack. Piece coordination. Every piece supports the other in attacking the opponent as much as we can. Knight b4, bishop takes f3, rook e8. And that was so confident, so he played knight c5. We got 3 pawns and very active pieces, so we can just afford to simply exchange. It doesn't matter. Now, maybe he can take 1 pawn, but it's really just a bad position. He played this, check here, and after knight d3, black resigned. Wow, that was a blast. I mean, this whole game was won by white simply due to one thing. He did not stop attacking. And this is why, this is the difference between a successful and an unsuccessful attack. An unsuccessful attack relies mostly on, yeah, let's just challenge him like that. Let's push him over here. And it doesn't work, because you can challenge him over here, do like that, but it's rarely going to be a good thing. However, an unsuccessful, a successful attack is much more about how you can follow that up with another move and another move and another move and another, usually forcing moves. 3 types of moves we got to be looking for, and you can balance between those, are forcing, restrictive, and improving. If you write those down on a little note, and when you start attacking, you think about them, I guarantee you, even if you don't find the best moves, you're going to find the second best moves. And that's a huge advantage. See, white combined. There's a forcing move on queen b5 followed by another. Now there is a reinforcing move. Another restrictive move that kind of made him to defend, and another restrictive move that made him to stay back. See, when you do this, you keep growing and building that momentum. And at one point, you see a possibility like rook e1 that sacrifices a queen, and you tell, wow, really? I mean, could this happen? You see, most people would not be able to do this. Not because they don't see the queen sacrifice, but because they never have the preparation for that. And in case you're wondering as to why didn't black play a move like queen a5, he could have done it, by the way. It's because, after rook takes d6, king f8, most likely that's what he should have done. But then there was a move of bishop f4, and there would be no way on how black can defend against bishop d6. It's just such a difficult thing. If you place rook d8, white can exchange it, and he can set bishop to the d6 next move. So if black plays perhaps knight e8 as an opportunity, white can simply do the move of rook d7. And so the black queen really doesn't matter. Every piece of white is completely dominated versus black's position right now. That is, Tal is a beast. Not really. He was just a good positional player. However crazy that may sound, it's all positional play. So One of you said, Valeri, you wasted a lot of time on the first game. No, I didn't. See, it's not about how many games we see. We can see 5 games in an hour. What's the point? The point is really to see the process, because the process is what you'll remember. The game you're going to forget. And a lot of times I say that when it comes down to master games, a lot of people say, how many master games should I see before I get strong? And I tell them, it doesn't matter. You can see 1,000 games and you're going to forget every single one of them. It doesn't matter what approach you use. The important thing about those games is to see the process, why the master was able to do what he was able to do, and how we can take some of that little magic, so to speak, and bring it into our own games. So I think what was great about these games is that we could see, even though they were different games with a common queen sacrifice happening, one of the things that you realize is the initiative that Tal was able to bring, as well as the preparation. Every piece was active. And in fact, it's easy to do that if you focus entirely on that in your game. If you cut the bullshit, so to speak, as some people call it, and think about, how do I get more forces to connect and keep the challenge over my opponent regularly? Now, this is why I do recommend you to check Masters Melihina's course, because she's brilliant at presenting some great ideas of the great masters, as well as how to do them in a strategic way. She explains a lot about the style of play. 15 hours, it's coming at 60% discount for the next few hours. She explains a lot about the chess styles, attacking, positional, and how they merge, all the great champions and their secrets of Mikhail Tal, the attacking style that he had, Karpel's maneuvering, and even Magnus Carlsen positional provocation that could allow a lot of beginner intermediate chess players to destroy the opponent. There's a lot of opening ideas that she brings and a lot of strategic concepts on how to think. So I do hope that you check it out. You can see a link below the video. It's coming at an incredible discount. It's a great course, and I'm going to recommend that you check a sample on the iChess channel so you can see for yourself. So I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. Now, I got one question by you. How should we solve tactics and puzzles? Well, you bring it up and you think with the process. Don't just try to calculate. Think about the ideas of the position. I've always said it. The great difference between an amateur and a master is that a master is always about evaluation and then the calculation. And a beginner always tries to calculate based on which you can evaluate. And that never works. It's like trying to drive without a map. You need a map. The map in chess is evaluating the circumstances, the weaknesses, what you need, what you do have, and what you don't have. So that's how you can direct your calculations. So try to use a process, and that makes the tactical solving and training much more helpful. So thank you all for joining me tonight. If you have any other questions, you can always visit my website, which is tigerlove.com, or join me next week for the webinar. When is it going to be? It is actually going to be next, I think it's going to be next Saturday. Yes, next Saturday at the same time, April 15 at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you so much, and I wish you a great weekend.